What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The More Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now, for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Will Berlinghoff. Now, Will has been a psychic on channel for over 30 years, with a BA degree in psychology and practical training in addiction counselling, group therapy and individual counselling. Now, he's developed a therapeutic approach to doing deep level counselling that involves working with the subconscious as well as connecting with the higher self spiritual aspect of one's being. Will Berlinghoff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on your show. Thank you, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Well, it's so good to have you back on. What people don't know is prior to myself leaving Amsterdam, I got a reading with Cosmic Awareness, which is what you channel. We've got so much to talk about today. And that reading is one of the readings that even when I'm at the gym sometimes, I listen back to just to give me that inspiration and that motivation to keep going, right? To say that this is all possible, right? Exactly. So I just want to really thank you for that reading you gave us.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a joy to do the reading for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a great reading. It really was, and we're going to get into the readings and basically I just want to get into before we do just a bit about yourself. Right. So, where did this all start for you? I believe, growing up, I mean, you grew up in I think your mother was quite religious in one sense, but she didn't force it upon you, did she?
That's right. She's Catholic, was Catholic. My mother passed about 3 months ago now. But she never pushed her faith on us. It's just that she was devout in her faith as a Catholic. And that's where it started, but it didn't take long to get out of that frame of mind or reference,
Yeah. And do you think, was there any sort of, when you look back nowadays, was there any sort of psychic abilities that you had back then? Was there anything that was different about yourself, do you think?
Now, that's always an interesting question, because when you try to assess the impact on your own life of one's own specific talents, psychic or otherwise, it's hard to determine if it began early on or not. I would have to say yes. Even as a child, I was super interested in things that were of an extra natural nature or supernatural nature. And I can't say to you that I was able at 4 years old to say to people, this is going to happen, or nothing like that. But I was always very intrigued, always very focused on life after life and religion and all of those things. So that's how I would say, for me, it went as a child. Okay? It was later on, in my later teen years, that I actually started to actively pursue developing my psychic abilities and talents, about 19 years of age.
Yes, because what age did you go to university?
Well, in Canada, I finished high school around 18, and so it was from 18 to 23, I mean. 4 years. So I did that in the 70s. That's dating myself somewhat, but way back in the 70s. And even during university, I took a degree in psychology, but I was always interested in not just behavioral modification and the standards of the time, but into paranormal. But my university didn't offer anything like that. So that had to wait a bit more until I left Canada and moved to Germany for a number of years, where I started to develop those interests.
So let me get this right. So you're Canadian born. That's where you're. Yeah. Okay. And then okay. So you went to Germany. No. And when you went to a place like Germany, was that? Did you just go with your gut feeling? Did you that you were drawn there? What was in Germany for
Well,
you?
interestingly enough, my father was German, and he'd gone to Canada. I was born there, so I was Canadian. And he was also in the Canadian military. So in 1966-67, our family did move to Germany as a tour of duty for him. So I was able to meet with German relatives and everything, and loved the place, loved Europe. And I actually told my relatives when we went back in 67 it was, that I was going to be back within 10 years. And sure enough, I did exactly that. Because my father, in the meantime, had been posted back. My parents divorced in between then. And so I finished my degree, and I thought, well, I have the time. Why don't I go to Germany now? I could live there and maybe work for the Canadians there, which I did. And it was perfect timing. But I actually told them 10 years previously that I would return, and I did, and I lived there then for 8 years.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do. 3. A brother and 2 sisters.
Okay. 3
Yeah.
siblings. Okay. How have they received the work and the person that you are now?
Well, I laugh because, those of us who develop these talents, these abilities, these views of points of view, we often do it without support of our family. Now, in my case, it wasn't so much that they were antagonistic. I've never had that. But I was more like, okay, there's weird Uncle Will, or there's my brother and his strange thinking on things. And yet I can say my mother always supported it. She didn't always understand what I was doing or the talents. My sisters and brother, they were all, I can't say staunch supporters of me, but they always supported me, and this is what I do. And that's fine with them. So my family was both accepting of it, but not interested in it. I can actually tell you that I don't think any of my siblings have ever gone to my website, rainbowphoenix.com.au. They don't know the kind of channeling work I do. And yet for 30 years, I also was a professional tarot reader before I became a channel for cosmic awareness.
Yes.
And
yes.
they accepted that. That just was, okay, that's how I'm doing it. Get a degree in psychology and then go and become a tarot reader. So it was great. I know other people have the experience where their families reject that kind of an approach, where they can't handle someone else who has psychic spiritual views. And I must emphasize, my view was always psychic spiritual, or spiritual with development of psychic abilities. And I was lucky to have family who, stood by me in that. But I do understand, because I've had many clients who have found it so difficult in their personal lives because their family are antagonistic towards what they think or what they develop,
Well, that's a beautiful thing, yeah. I meet a lot of channelers on my journey, because I've interviewed a lot of channelers coming onto me, that I've been, got onto my channel, and it's all sorts. I mean, most of them nowadays, they have a loving, supporting family that's perfect with them. Or some of their extended family may not be so great. I've been very blessed. I don't have extended family because my family all fell out at one point. So I've just got my family, and they've all been very spiritual, and that's been a beautiful thing for me. So I don't. Yeah, I think what you've gone through is I think that for your generation of coming out channeling, that's a good story, what you're telling me there, because there's other stories for people that have come on from your generation, which it's not been so nice.
That's right. One of the things I find, Kevin, and this is a hardship for people who experience this, is having these views, and let's say in a marriage, they can't share it with their spouse, they don't have family to go through, so they're very isolated. The amount of people I have met, clients I've read for and counseled, that isolation with no one to talk to has got to be one of the hardest burdens to bear when you have this kind of capacity within you and this interest and drive to discover the greater truth of our spiritual being. So I guess we can say we were actually quite blessed in having families that loved us despite whatever weirdness we're into.
Right. Well, we soon stop calling it weirdness, don't we? We're okay to use that. We're okay to mess around with that word, of course, and we'll joke about it. Of course we will. I'll be the first to do that. But there gets to a point where, you know, it's a difficult thing to even for yourself to accept this. And I probably told you when I got that reading with you, maybe I didn't, but I was fighting this to the bank. But we'll get into that. Did you? Well, actually, this is about you, really. Were you fighting it? Were you fighting it quite a bit at one point?
Never. I've never fought it. I've always trusted my intuition. You know, I said I returned back to Germany after 10 years. Yes. I had finished university, and I was at a very strong crossroad. I could do what my heart wanted, which was the return to Germany, even though I didn't know at that time I was going to live there for 8 years, and then afterwards 10 years in England. No, I followed that intuitiveness, that followed my heart, actually. So from that point of view, I have always worked as that which is guided by something beyond me, okay? And had a trust and a faith in that. I mean, it's even brought me now to Australia, where I've lived now for 4.5 years. Because that too came at a time where it's like, this is what you have to do. Go for it. Everything else, others were saying, well, that's crazy. Why do you want to move to Australia now?
Right.
You know?
But what a beautiful thing you did, because look who you've met. Yeah. Look where it's taken you mentally as well. Yeah. And spiritually, it's placed you in the best place you could. You couldn't even have dreamed of the existence that you've got now, could you? I mean, you know, you don't, you know. Your higher self sees just the tiny pictures. Sorry, you're through your eyes, you just see a bit of the picture, but your higher self, it sees the huge infinitive picture, what's available to you, and you've gone with that. That's such a beautiful thing. And I do hear you when you say, you know, you don't fight it now. I can tell that by just speaking to you, right? I'm learning that the hard way. Let me just say that, if you know, and I'm glad that you're able to be transparent to this audience and be honest, and just it's an inspiration to other people going through the same thing.
You're welcome. And I have to add that that does not mean that once I got here there hasn't been challenges. There have been plenty of challenges, but those challenges are the opportunities of our life. First, to trust the intuitive compulsion that's there, that's driving you. And second of all, to realize that when you go into the challenging episodes of your life, that you can gain so much if you go with it versus fighting it. So I think that's something very important to understand, that just because the intuition tells you this is what you need to do and you follow it, it does not mean you're not going to be challenged. But in the challenge is the growth and the development of that higher personality of our being.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was interviewing someone yesterday and we both said the same thing about the challenges. And in this moment right now, I forgot about that. And you've just reminded us all of that. So thank you. Yeah, because whatever you do, your soul will challenge you, or you'll challenge you, set challenges for yourself. However it's going to be laid out, however it works, we don't really know, but there will be challenges there to oppose your truth that you're trying to find, or the path that you're going down. That's okay. But you still went past those challenges. You've still gone through that fear, and look where you are. That's an example to everyone, right? And it is.
Look where you are. That's so funny in a way, because it's like, I still don't know where the hell I am sometimes.
But you're living but you're happy though. You're living with joy. That's a great place.
It is much better place than living in depression and fear, which is the mainstream for most people.
And why is it the mainstream? Because they don't think they're powerful enough to live the life they want. You know, the fear rules them a lot. And, you know, also they just don't love themselves as much sometimes, because, you know, if we loved ourselves a bit more, you know, we would follow those passions. And don't ask me, I mean, if someone said to me, what is love? I'm still not sure, right? But to me, let's just go, keep it simple. It's just what you're drawn to do. And love for me, if I try to remind myself right now what love is it's not pushing your truth on anyone or trying to hurt anyone, or it's helping people. Well, I hope. But I might change my mind.
Exactly. I would add, though, that it's helping yourself first and foremost. It's taking care of your personal business first and foremost. And I mean business at all levels. Okay, Joseph Campbell, he's a wonderful man. He's passed now, but he used to say, "Follow your bliss," or "follow your heart." Amounts to the same thing. Okay, and I would rather live a life where I've gone out and done those things that I felt guided to do, even moving to Australia, for example, than to be at the end of my life with regrets that I didn't follow my heart, follow my bliss.
Well, that's another powerful thing you've just said there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't die, as Wayne Dyer says, don't die with the music inside you.
That's right. And he was a wonderful man, too. He was one of the first ones I had read to get me started on my active journey. So I had great respect for him.
Well, did you not read the Seth material as well?
I did in the 70s when I could still read. I have to share with you that part of my journey is that I have a condition called retina pigmentosa, so I am legally blind now. So I actually don't read anymore.
Oh.
So coming to Australia,
Right.
even though I already was declared legally blind, was in itself a big challenge to trust that, okay, I can't see very well, but I'm going to do this anyway, because everything in me says I have to do this. This is right for me. So we too often can use the conditions of our lives, the situations of our lives, as the excuses to not follow our heart, to not have that courage, to come to the edge of the cliff and to step off. That's the leap of faith, of course. And when we get to those moments in our life, then we have to be able to say, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know, this is where I have to go with it. And then to take that leap of faith at that edge there, you know?
Well, oh my God, I did not know that you were legally blind. Right, because obviously when we spoke last time, it was more of a reading for myself, so it wasn't really an interview. Wow. Whoa. So would you, okay, well, Seth always said, and I'm sure you might agree with this, that we create our reality. That's a hard pill to swallow with what you've got. But people with issues like you have, whatever it may be, is that true, do you think?
Yes, it is to a degree, but I also believe that we already, before we come into this life, have kind of arranged the life we're to have. And that would include having agreements with the ones that you're going to be closest to, mother, father, siblings, extended family, future spouses. So in a sense, we already, before we've ever come here, have a plan of what we want to accomplish here. And that would include the kind of challenges like I've got here with my eyesight, of knowing that in this life, I'm not going to have perfect 20/20 vision in the physical. But as a result, I have created a life where I can work with my inner vision. I usually say my outer vision may be crap, but I do have 20/20 inner vision. So, you know?
Right. Wow. That's just so inspiring for other people, whatever they may be going through as well while watching this, that no matter what we've got, we've got to see that there's a gift within it. Which is easy for me to sit here opposite on the other side of the world, because you're in Australia, I'm in England, and on an internet connection. But I'm just trying to, not trying to make sense of what you're going through, but, trying to apply some spiritual sense in there as well.
So it does mean that I chose to have this condition that I have now. So when you start to really work from that level of comprehension, you cannot simply be the victim. You can't say, oh, this happened to me, and if it hadn't have happened that way, I would have done this. We can't blame other people because we've chosen those people in our lives. We've chosen our lives, hardships and miracles. It's all by choice. But what we can do is begin to understand that we have the capacity in this life to go beyond that restriction of belief that says, I have this, I'm a victim to this, to a point of I am free within myself to still pursue anything and everything that my heart yearns for. And that's the bigger challenge.
Right. Yes. 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 Phew, wow. Okay, let's just go
Sure.
back a bit here as well. Obviously, thank you for sharing what you've just shared there as well. Obviously, you're channeling. Okay, well, what is channeling to you? Let's just get that to begin. What's your understanding of channeling today after all these years of doing it?
Well, I read the Jane Roberts Seth material in the 70s, as I said. And of course, she began through the Ouija board and all that, her journey. And she had to come to a point where she allowed the entity that referred it to itself as Seth to come through, to give into it. I think her name from Seth was Rupert or something like that.
Yes, that's
and
right.
that was a level of channeling that is very typically understood to be channeling. She gave herself over and allowed him to flow through. The very famous American channel, Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, he actually had to leave altogether. He fell asleep. And then that force of consciousness that worked through him could come through. Now, interestingly enough, cosmic awareness is that same force of consciousness that came through Edgar Cayce. So when I started because I became a member of a group called Cosmic Awareness Communication out of America there. And there was another man who was channeling. Paul Shockley was his name at the time. He was channeling cosmic awareness. And I joined in 78. I'd been a member for many, many, many years. And I always thought, okay, channeling, you have to do that traditional way. You do a trance channeling, you vacate, allow the entity being, whatever, come through. And that's how I started when I finally did begin to channel cosmic awareness, which kind of happened, I won't say accidentally, but I worked towards it for over 30 years, doing channeling through my tarot reading, although I didn't call it channeling. I just allowed the information to flow. And then one day I was asked by the people at CAC to see if I could come up with a forecast for 2006. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. I don't want to use my tarot cards. I'm just going to open up and see what comes through. And what then happened for me is that entity, or it's actually not an entity, it's a force in consciousness, a collective force in consciousness that is known as cosmic awareness, suddenly came through. And it was like a shift happened. And I could feel this buildup of this wonderful energy, and I just spoke the words and let that come through. So that's when I started my channeling experience.
Right.
And when I began that experience with the traditional way, try to vacate, I never left. That's what always confused me. I was getting this information that I could allow to flow through me, but I didn't go anywhere. I was, as I often say, in the back seat of the car, and I'd given over to control to cosmic awareness to drive the car. And I just would let that flow through me. And that's how I did that for a while. But even that has changed over the years. As I've become more aware of my multi-dimensional personality, I have learned to not just go up and out to the seventh dimension or wherever, where cosmic awareness joined me. I have learned to become a funnel, a pinpoint end of the funnel that expands into cosmic awareness. Therefore, now the way I believe I channel is that I just adjust my frequencies, if you will, and allow that force that is cosmic, which is part of me, more than part of it, to actually flow through me. So I can come and go out of that state of consciousness, literally like that. So that's how I channel now. It is an extension of my own being that is channeling through me in this pinpoint focus that I represent.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so it's not a group. Well, no, it is a group. Would you say there's a group? There's a collective group there behind the scenes?
Yes, there is. It comes across as an individual entity or being, but it really isn't. It's a collective, and sometimes I get that impression. I get the we-ness of it. We, the family of consciousness that I'm part of.
Well,
that's what I feel.
You told me in my reading that I'm also channeling collective consciousness, cosmic awareness. Sorry, and when I first started channeling, I named it the One. But then it started to evolve, that there was this Cayce, this perspective of Cayce, this aspect, it called itself of Cayce, not Cayce, but an aspect of Edgar Cayce.
No, not Cayce.
Yeah.
That's right. We're not the person, not reincarnations of Edgar Cayce or anyone else.
And I found that very interesting, the aspect. And he was part of this collective group. Now, but as your reading told me, actually, he was channeling cosmic awareness. That's where he was connected to go to this council to get the information, the healing information that he brought through. Yeah.
That's right. And that was his forte. He loved to do healing work and readings for others for the purpose of helping them heal.
Yes, he did, and he helped. But then he never helped himself, did he? Because he was a full-time chain smoker. He didn't listen to cosmic awareness when it told him to slow down, because it did care about him enough. It did want him to stay on this side. And he did his own thing. He did his own thing. So, you know, none of us are perfect doing this. We are having a human experience bringing this information through.
Absolutely. Now, the difference between now, at this time, and 2017 here, versus when he did it in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, I think it was the 30s mostly, is that he was a very devout Christian. And it was such a big challenge to him that he literally could not stay around consciously to hear what was being said. It was too challenging. So it was a curious thing that he had. He allowed the force of that consciousness, that collective consciousness, come through, but he had to step aside so that he wasn't too challenged personally. So it's amazing he actually carried on and did it. But you're right. He did disregard the information he himself got about slow down, you're overdoing it. But then you could also say, well, maybe that's how he planned his life anyway. Maybe that was what was to be for him.
And isn't that interesting what you said there? Because when you go onto the Edgar Cayce ARE website, right, they post a lot of his quotes per day, and it's so enigmaed in hidden meaning, some of what he says. You have to really want to decode it. He never gave it away for free. That's what I'm saying. And it's also, there's a lot of religious context as the filter that he was, that's come out in the readings. So you have to take all this into account, don't you? And it's interesting what you just said as well, that I'm putting words in your mouth here, I hope not, but you're much more of a conscious channel.
That's right. I agree totally. I am a conscious channel, okay? And you can see that, in a manner of speaking, how far society, how far we have come since Edgar Cayce. I mean, he was miles ahead of how most people thought of things. And yet he was still admired in his traditional Christian-type belief system. And now we don't quite have that the way he had it. There are many who are very fundamental in their beliefs. I'm not saying that. But this concept of our higher spiritual nature has changed from just being only in reference to a omnipotent God, an omnipotent God that is in charge of everything, and if you don't follow his instructions, how absurd that it is a he, why shouldn't it be a she? If you don't follow that, then you are going to suffer the consequences. And I think the truest understanding of our spiritual destiny is that we are the God personified in these focused personalities. All of us each having unique experiences, capable of expanding back into a fuller awareness of our greater being, which is spiritual in nature, okay? Which is quite a difference now to how it was thought of back then when nobody knew about any of this kind of stuff. And you only had one or two people. Lopsing Rampa is another one who came later on.
Yes.
You know? So we are seeing things differently, but we are still very confused with the traditional interpretations of spirit, which puts it outside of us, versus what I think we believe, Kevin, that it is actually within us, and we are part of that.
Of course, and I resonate with you a lot. You know that, I really do. It's probably because we're both coming from the same space. Now, you got to understand, right? I interview a lot of people, right? And I won't be doing so many interviews forever because I'm about to cut it down soon, because I'm about to put my time into my channeling. I made a choice yesterday and a few days before, probably, that this is what's pulling me. I'm going against the grain by doing all these interviews, and now it's pulling me to get into my channeling, and I'll get into that in a bit. But, you know, with interviewing all these people, it's a fight sometimes. Do you know that? It's a complete and utter fight, because, you know, as soon as you interject some of your truth into the interview, oh my God, it's the worst thing you could have done. This is their platform to shine. This is their truth only. And they tell you that they completely disagree with your truth, which I'm all for. Let's have that debate. Come on, you know, let's create some, let's have some other people's truths, and let's see that there's conflict in truths. But there are some people who really are class themselves as spiritual teachers, which they are, because I do believe that we are all attracted to those people whose teachings that we need to hear at this time, or the people like yourself that we need to get that reading from. We are attracted to the right level, spiritual level of person that will get us to the next bit. And we may look back sometimes and say, well, that person, now I don't agree with totally what they're saying. I'm looking for another.
Now that's all very interesting, because when you start looking at it, first of all, I'm in total agreement with what you just said. I do not believe for 1 second even that I am the perfect channel for everyone. To tell you the truth, there are so many who are at such a lower level of comprehension about these things that, quite honestly, what I would have to share through my ability to channel cosmic awareness would be beyond them, okay? And that's fine, because there's someone else that they can go to who will explain it at the level of their understanding that works for them. So I don't try to be the one size that fits all, okay? What I offer is what I offer, and those who have a comprehension of it will be attracted to it. And those who don't, I'm not worried, because there's only 7.5, almost 8 billion people. So there's got to be a few more out there that might be more at the level I work from, okay? But there is another point that I really want to make in relation to what you just said, and that is about these ones that say, well, I've got the truth of it. I want to point out that we actually live in a dualistic reality. What that means is that we hold that things are either right or wrong, black or white, male or female. I mean, we're talking about whatever you hold to be the truth and reality of it is that which you assume is correct and right. If someone else has another view, the opposition to that view, because we're in a dualistic binary situation, is such that we have to reject what the other says, because to accept what they say might mean that I'm wrong. And most of us don't want to accept I'm wrong, therefore I'm right, others are wrong. And this is a mainstay to our world, our reality of perception that we live in. And what we are needing to do, what is now happening as the spirit energy of higher consciousness is flowing very strongly into this plane of existence, is realize that it's time to abandon the binary way of interpreting one's life and one's reality to a trinary reality. And therein lies something that's known as unity consciousness. And from that trinary point, that third point of reference, we can then begin to see that this person is right in their view, that person is right in their view, but the higher perspective says neither are right or wrong, they're just positions held. If you kind of invest a lot of energy in holding that I am correct, then by definition, the others have to be wrong. If as a nation you say we are correct in our attitude, then that gives you the right to oppose others who don't have the same view. If you want to hold that I, as a fundamental Muslim, radicalized, have the right of it, and Allah is with me and I will kill all my enemy, well, that's an extreme point of reference of a binary choice system, okay? To look at it from the higher level, the unity conscious level, you would say, no, that's just the position that they hold. That's their truth. But to force it on others is not correct. Equally, to deny it may ultimately be the challenge that is needed to look at. Why? Why do I deny that? Because I hold my point of view to be right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very interesting, because I think we are on the cusp of such a shift in consciousness, away just from a binary dualistic pattern of belief and actions to one that is much higher, is a unity consciousness that allows, from the trinary point of view, that added perspective that can see the whole picture versus one side or the other of the picture.
Of course, of course. Yeah. You know, I've got no problem. If someone challenges me with my truths, I've got no problem with it, because I'm so open-minded to say, well, you know, I think the reality that we go to when we cross over and that we've come from is so greater than what we even understand on this level, or what we can channel through. I'm happy to say that what we bring through is just to give us a basis of understanding, but it may not even be the truth of what actually is. It may be greater. But when you say that to some people, you say it to some people who are spiritual teachers out there, and from your home country as well, and others, right? They're like, no, hang on. There's only one truth, and you will find that truth the same way out as I found it. I'm like, well, but don't you think that when we go home that we take our truth with us, and there's multiple truths, and I don't think there's anyone standing over us when we go back home to say, actually, I would not think that truth is actually truth. I would go with what I think. You're allowed to. I think the evolution is infinitive, where you are growing your truth, and nothing's forced upon you to say this is the only way it is. I don't know. I may be wrong saying that, but I'm okay. I'm just saying that we have to remain open-minded.
Well, Kevin, when you think about it, with what I just spoke of, the unity consciousness, when we leave a dualistic belief system, we go back to unity consciousness.
Right.
The higher levels of consciousness are coming from that level of unity or oneness. They don't judge, because they understand down here, this is just a play, a game that we choose to be part of for X number of years, 410, or whatever, 310, whatever. And that becomes very apparent when we're released from the quagmire of a dualistic system, where we can turn home and see the truth of it, which is far greater than the limited perception of truth that we hold to be so down here.
Yeah, in the past, I would say with some channelers that come on, I was guilty of saying, oh, well, they're just connecting with their higher self when they channel. But actually, my truth has changed, and I think something separate does come through most people, and it's separate, but it's also connected as one. So it's the higher self that's received. That's a kind of gateway to allow the information to come through. And again, the higher self is just it's us. It's not really separate in a sense.
Well, we always have to remember we're human beings having this experience, and as human beings, we are spirit beings having a human experience. And you can look at reality and all the different strata of reality as different levels, okay? And I can honestly say to you that I personally would find it very difficult to understand someone who is coming from a strata where they see everything is in conflict and that they have to lash out and hurt other people and force other people into their beliefs, because that's not my belief system. But there is room, because this is a multiple universe, so to speak, to have your own unique experience that you will take back with you, back into the Godhead, back into spirit, back to our spiritual sources or source. Therefore, if someone else is having those experiences, or even if I was at that level before, where I held it to be so, and yet continued in my growth and development and realized, well, actually, it isn't so, and I can step forward. That's the challenge always, is to take the next step into a spiritual revelation, an understanding of something that is more than the limitation we accepted before. So, we have to be loving to ourselves, even when we may have been, once upon a time, the persecutor to another and their viewpoint or their lives. Because if we can't see that and understand that in and of ourselves, then we will be always restricted to those levels. And we eventually leave that because we die. We die and we go back into the fabric of our greater being. And that's where the truth is then revealed. And it's like, ooh, I guess I got that wrong. I guess maybe I'd like to come back at some other occasion and try again.
You know, I think it's probably very addictive to want to come here. And I think it takes a brave soul to have a human experience down here.
Absolutely. That's why when we finally leave here and return back into the spiritual fabric of our being, back to our loved ones, back to our spiritual home, there's great celebration because, oh, you're back, hooray. Just as there often is a sadness, in a manner of speaking, if you choose to come into the cauldron of experience. Now, why do we do that? One reason I understand is because when we're in that bliss state or that place of total immersion into the fabric of the essence of all, and that is a bliss state, the opportunities for intense experiences to grow and learn are not as great. That happens when we come into this physical body, into this third dimensional reality, where we are separated, it seems, from that spiritual connection that we have when we're in spirit. And therefore, we have the much greater opportunity in this reality, in this physical form, having physical experiences, to learn, to grow, to make mistakes, to get it right occasionally. So this is, I think, the main reason spirit chooses and the soul chooses to send aspects of itself back into this physical reality. So when they return, the soul itself is enhanced and expanded by those very experiences.
Absolutely. And with your readings, Will, you know, you're not telling people's future, you're not connecting with their loved ones that have crossed over. This is a very self-empowering reading. You're going into the deeper issues, the karmic issues maybe as well, of why they have these problems. That's when they come to you.
Well, I think I would start by saying I'm not going to predict your future. I'm not going to tell you this and that and that and this is going to happen, because that would be a disrespect of your own freedom to be the creator being you are and to create the reality you need to have in order to grow and evolve, okay? But what is provided is such a deep, powerful connection with yourself through this higher option, if you will, of cosmic awareness. And therefore, it is the type of experience that's very hard to explain because it is direct to you. And each person is a different reading and has a different result, of course. But mostly, it is touching the greatness of your own being and being touched by the greatness of Source. And that is something you have to kind of experience, in a manner of speaking, as you did, Kevin, to fully appreciate and understand. Sure, awareness has a lot of practical information for you. And in that practical information, it allows you to have choice. So it can give information, but it's yours to choose to do it this way or that way. All right? But I think the biggest gift of a reading with cosmic awareness is that touching of one's own soul and a remembrance that one is of spirit, even though it's dealing with the most practical situations in life. Believe me, people have asked me all manner of things, and awareness coming through me has given them much support and guidance so that they can figure it out themselves, so that they can change what they need to change if that's their desire. But mostly, just so that they can understand that you, me, each of us, is that creator being, that spirit being, that are multidimensional in nature. We can connect through our high self to our higher sources, I say sources deliberately, plural, because as multidimensional beings, there's so many different levels of that and aspects to it. But when I say also then that we are all part of source at the same time, the oneness of the all, then we begin to understand that our little lives, which are quite amazing in many ways, are also part of the bigger reality of the all. Okay? I don't know if that answers the question, because I can absolutely tell you that cosmic awareness has said things to people that a year later or whenever I talk to that person again, they'll say, wow, when awareness talked about this, that's exactly how it turned out.
Yeah.
But that's not predicting.
Yeah, absolutely,
okay?
Absolutely. And I think, some people will be like, prove it to me that what's coming through is true, tell me something no one else knows. And that's not going to happen in this reading. It's not going to happen. I mean, okay, some people, have a different gift and maybe they're able to pick up on different things like that, but that's not this type of reading. This is a reading that's actually going to make you go within and for you to find the answers yourself in a sense, and it's just different. And I think that's a beautiful part of this. Again, like I started out saying, that we all do. I mean, in my channeling, I couldn't give that reading either like that. That's not the gift I've got.
That's not, when you were told that you too are a channel of cosmic awareness, what is very important to understand is that you are unique, you are individual, exactly as you're saying. How you bring it forward is how you do it. It's not how it's not you trying to be me. When I first started my channeling, I tried to do it the way that the one that went before me, Paul Shockley, used to do it. And he used to lie down on the ground on a mattress. He had candles around him and crystals and magnets. And I did this, and I was in a smaller space. And I did it until one day I moved my arm and knocked over a candle, and the cushion started on fire. And I quickly beat it out and going, this doesn't work for me. And there was something in me that was saying, sit up. Go and sit down in the chair. You don't have to be stretched out. That's how Paul...
That's exactly how I was doing it. There were other channelers that I was emulating as well, and experimenting with it, right? And thinking, this is not exactly... That's, oh, God, I so agree with you there. Yeah.
And when you have the confidence to do it your way, then you have already learned that lesson, to trust yourself. Because there's a lot of imitators of others. So somebody does it this way and others, Archangel Michael, when he first came through, and everyone did Archangel Michael because he was vogue. It was like, wow. And then wait. But it's the ones that went beyond and really started to offer more and more. Okay? So it's a journey. That part of it is a journey for those who are inclined toward channeling, to trust their own authority, their own instincts, their own deep perceptions of this all. And that's a very strong journey to take.
Another thing I want to touch on as well, Will, is that, money in this arena. We should charge for our readings. We should charge appropriately because, there's a lot of energy given out doing these readings, and money is just another form of energy. And I think, the right people will resonate to you. We all attract the right people with the readings that we offer. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And sure, if we lived in a society as the indigenous people used to live, where they honored their shamans, their medicine men, their seers, if we lived in such a society where I didn't have to pay the rent on this house and I didn't need money to go and buy food because food was provided to me and brought to me, that would be fine. Then I could do it that way. But that's not the reality of this particular third dimensional experience I'm having. I offer a gift, and great energy is brought through me. But that has a cost on me as well. And many are the times I only do 1 or 2 readings a day, because afterwards I need some time down. I need to recover some of that energy. It's an interesting thing because I'm not depleted, but I often need a while to restore, okay? Go and lay down for a bit or whatever. And therefore, it isn't simply the hour or the 2 hours, because I have two levels of reading at different costs, that I'm actually putting out. It's also the time before and after that are involved in this. Now, I am a believer in what I call and what is known as energy exchange. Okay, an exchange of one's energy. Now, we do that in our society through money. We do a job, we get paid, we get bucks or pounds or whatever, okay, euros, and then we can use that money to pay someone else for their service. That's how we do energy exchange, but there's nothing personal to it. When you start to recognize and understand that you need to always be in balance when you work with others, then the energies are okay, they're balanced. If you don't understand that, then you might always give of yourself and another may always take from another. And if you're in that kind of situation, the imbalance will always keep you in a loop with that person. It's not clean. It's not a clean way of doing it. I also maintain that, yes, I am saying this service that I provide has value. I have value. But here's the other part. You have value too. And if you value yourself and you know the importance of the exchange of energy for energy given is an important thing, then you will say, I deserve this. Yes, maybe my price, the top end reading is for many, they would say, oh, it's too much. But if they can't see they deserve it, then it might not have a value for them if they have resentment because they're paying a big amount out, because they're certainly not going to be open to receive the energy that's actually being given to them.
Right. That's so important that you've said what you've said, because that will help so many other readers that are watching this, or people that are in this industry giving service, and for those wondering about these questions as well. That just helps a lot. Thank you for that.
Well, I have a little story. I started doing my psychic work as a tarot reader in England, actually. I was living close to Loughborough, little town, hamlet there, between Loughborough and Leicester. And I put an ad in the local post office, and I think I charged £3 for the first readings. And I was also going, oh my God, is that too much? Oh God, £3, will they want to pay it or not? And so it is a challenge for those of us who do this kind of work to determine the value of our own work with others and to others. And so over the many years, and I've been at it now 40 plus years, it's gone up to points where it's like a challenge to me to ask this much for the service I provide. But if I don't do that and don't look at the value of my own gifts as I exchange them with others and share them with others, then you're always going to stay at that low ego level that says, I'm not worthy of this. Okay? So it is a self journey, a journey of self.
Brother, that's exactly what I've been suffering from. Do you know, when you gave me that amazing reading, right? I'm not just trying to sell readings for you here. I'm just being honest.
No.
This is just transparency right now, at its ultimate, right? I didn't, that reading is still impacting me now, because I've come back to the UK. I'm going to the US, and I've said to myself, right, to go to the US, let's align myself. Let's go back to the UK. I'm 10 minutes away from the airport right now. I'm in line and everything with my, I'm with family, which is a beautiful thing, and I'm in the right place. But now life's really testing me. Now life's like, okay, so you're not happy with doing the interviews you're doing. Do you think we're doing this to force you to be that reader that you were looking for? Because you told me about my psychic services, and I've changed my mind completely on it, because you said how important it was going to be, and I'm now going to be the head of that psychic platform, and it's only going to be the top of the best readers that are going to be on there, right? And life is forcing me, really, with my hand behind my back, but in a good way, to start doing these readings for people, because that's what my soul really wants, right? Now, I would never have thought this way when you first gave me that reading. It didn't make much sense, but it did feel right what you gave me. Now look at what's
Right.
happening. Now I'm about to start channeling and about to start offering my services, which I'm scared shitless about in one sense, but actually on the other hand, it feels so fulfilling. And I tell you what scares me a little bit, just a little bit, is that you've taken 30 years to perfect your art or more. And there's someone like me coming in, having an awakened experience. Well, I had an awakened experience before, but coming into channeling in January 2015, writing a book straight away, which is going to be published next year. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't be ready for this. But then I think to myself, you've done this lifetime after lifetime. You are
exactly
ready.
Good for you.
You are.
Also, my way of doing it was my way. That's how I planned it for myself. I entered into the sphere of experience in this third dimensional plane in the 50s. 1954 is when I was born. And things were so much different back then. You entered a number of years after that. And you have your own way of it, your own plan of it. There is no right or wrong here, Kevin. It is simple enough. The planned way you decided to do it is exactly the way you're doing it now. The way I decided to do it, because I came in a bit earlier and I had to build bridges and get from A to B over a number of decades, was the way I chose to do it. That's all. No, neither is right or wrong. It can only be said it's right for you or it's right for me, because that's the way I planned it. That's the way you planned it. Also remember, we're advancing as a race, as humanity itself. We're advancing. We're further along than where Edgar Cayce was with it 40, 50, well, 70 years ago, I guess. And we're still going. The youth that are here now, the kids that are born, they're coming from a different level on it. They're coming in already open to the truth that they are of spirit. They're coming in and they're having these amazing experiences. Mary Rodwell, I don't know if you know about Mary here in Australia, but she is English, but she lives here. She works with kids, 8 years old, who are talking about quantum physics, who are talking about their experiences in the beyond, and are going, well, why is it this way here? It's not what I'm getting, it's not what I know. So something is happening, and we have to be excited about that, Kevin. We have to be excited that we're not in the same quagmire that we were 70 years ago, like Edgar Cayce, or in the 50s when I was born, or the 60s, or whatever.
Also, I'm curious as well. What's coming to me on my mind is that. Will you be doing a book? Have you ever thought of doing a book?
That's an interesting question, because I have been thinking for a long time to write a book. And maybe it's just procrastination on my part. Maybe that's part of my challenge, to trust and believe that I can do it. There's a book in there, and I do think that that's something that's coming very soon. But at the same time, as part of the journey that I've been on, I've just been involved in the day-to-day activities of life, which are themselves often very challenging. And then there's the other part of the journey where I trust my intuition, so it takes me to Germany to have the experience, took me to England, and now here. And life itself is a teacher, as you know. And I've just been involved in that experience, but now... as a kid, when you're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Actually, the thing I'd always say is I want to be a writer. Okay? And I have written a few little things, and have been published a couple times in minor magazines, minor publications. But it feels to me that this is the next level of my journey. And I have to have the courage. I can share with you, this is interesting. Maybe you'll relate to it. There's a book that I once read, it's not that long ago, Spanish author, I think it was. Anyway, it's about this kid who was trying to follow his dreams and whatever. I wish I remembered the name of the book or the author. But the point is, he went into one shop, and here's the shop owner. And he's not happy in his life. He's got this dream that he has, but he's never pursued it. And so the kid says to him, well, why don't you? He says, because if I tried to go for the dream and it failed, then what would I have left? I'd have nothing. At least now I have a dream that I can hold and put on that shelf over there and say, that's my dream, but I'm never going to take it off the shelf. So what's interesting about that is that often we hold a dream that is part of the force of our consciousness that's trying to push us towards something, but we're too frightened to give it a go. And fear is the major crippling point. It is the major restriction of humanity from pursuing your dreams, from actualizing, because we're afraid that maybe we'll go for it and it'll fail. Of course, in failure, there are great lessons, of course. But it is all mixed into the situation for myself. That dream is one I've got to take down off the shelf, I think.
And I know we've got to get going here. I know we have. Just a couple more things, right? You told me when in my reading about that we sometimes forget the lower aspect of ourselves. That sometimes we don't always recognize this lower aspect, and I think you called it the subconscious. Maybe this part of what we are now. This part. When we follow our passion, we're following our higher self. We're following that purest part of us, the God source that's within us, the soul that we are, the knowing that we know what we need to do. That's the passion that we feel. But when you said to me in my reading that we ignore the lower self sometimes. Because you do a lot of work in this as well. Just what are we ignoring?
Yes.
And because I spoke to another channeler about this, not the exact same words, but it's something like, well, I've got this lower self that I have been speaking to, and then what they said is, well, yeah, but you're then creating that reality that the lower self exists.
Yeah, you can get into the semantics of words and all of that. But my understanding is based on a concept of philosophy that's called Huna, H-U-N-A, Huna. And it was practiced by kahunas on the Polynesian islands, the Hawaiian islands, okay? And their understanding is that we were triunal beings, or three-part beings. And their understanding is we had a part that took care of the body, that was the interface to the physical, and that was at one level. The low self. They have a Hawaiian name for it. Sorry, I can't remember it. It's too complicated. But I've always known it as the low self or subconscious. Then there is that aspect of ourselves that is beyond the physical, is not immersed in the body, which is our gateway to our spirit and our spiritual connection of being, which is the high self. Okay? And a lot of people aim for their high self, but never work with their low self. And the third part of the being, our being, is the middle self. You, I, our sense of identity of who I am Will, this means that, you are Kevin, that means this. That this is part of the three-part being that we have to understand has been hidden from us. We have never been encouraged to understand ourselves as three parts. Spiritual, the spirit living in the physical body, which is the middle self. We're not the body, we live in the body. And then the body housing the low self. They took that away, they being those in power. And primarily the Catholic Church. They came up with this philosophy they teach everyone that's called Father, Son, Holy Ghost. But it's outside of yourself. You need to go through the third party, or the priests and the bishops and all of them. Okay? You have to adhere to that system. And there's other Christian faiths and Judaic and all the other ones. Okay? But basically, they're still not teaching you that you are triunal, a three-party being. And they're not teaching you how to merge with both your low self and your high self. Over the years, I have developed a way of counseling that I call trinary regression therapy. And that very much, first of all, introduces you to the low self in a visualization approach, guided visualization, where I psychically participate in the journey, so I'm seeing what they're seeing. It's quite an amazing way to work, actually. And in that approach, it also then helps you to start pulling in the issues that we have so we can resolve them. And that includes past life or other life experiences. It includes I've worked with people with satanic backgrounds. I have worked with people who are just lost, don't know where they're going, low self-esteem. I could go on and on. But it is most fascinating work when one starts to realize that I actually have three parts of me. They're all me, but they're three kind of categories. And that goes back, the Huna philosophy goes back to the golden age, whatever that was, where humans had that understanding, lived with the comprehension they were spirit beings living in a physical body, which we have lost. Okay?
Yeah. And what would you say, Will, is the most important message of your work as from today?
As of today, I would say hang on to your hats, folks, because things are happening that have never happened before. The spiritual force of divine source itself is coming through loud and strong, and the evidence of it is all around us. We just have to start opening our eyes and our hearts. We have to open our hearts to this. And we are living in the most amazing time of all, because we're in the time of transition from the old paradigms that have controlled us and dominated us for thousands of years, to a point of freedom, spiritual freedom, psychic freedom, physical freedom. But it requires work. You, each of us, has to be willing to do the inner work on oneself, to open up to the higher truths of one's own being. And if you're willing to do that, miracles will be bestowed upon you. The light will enter into the dark room, and you will begin to see. Okay? It is rainbowphoenix.com.au. And go to the site, as you said already, Kevin, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of material that's available for free. We also have a members part of that for, members' questions, discount in readings. I'm now doing webinars. You don't have to be a member for that. In fact, I just did a webinar the other day about the triunal being and all of that. And those will be available for sale. But there's all kinds of choices there and all kinds of information. One last thing I want to say about the readings themselves, because you can get personal readings, either an hour long or 2 hour ones, is that, as you've experienced, Kevin, often what happens is that you have the reading, it has this effect. Often it speaks to what is known within you anyway, but interestingly enough, it keeps on giving so that you can go back to that reading afterwards, a week, a month, a year later, and it will again offer something that you didn't realize was there in the first place. I think you were kind of speaking to that. So that's something that's of interest to me, that people keep telling me over and over. I just listened to it again, first time in 8 months, and my God, it's like the first time I ever heard it.
You know, I'm connected with you. I can feel that. I think we're connected because that same energy, the cosmic consciousness, we're both channeling the same energy, and I feel that connection with you.
And that's what's happening. We are meeting our brothers and sisters. They're not our physical brothers and sisters of our families, but they are our spiritual brothers and sisters. And we are waking up, and we are reaching out, and we are coming together. Look out, folks, because it's an amazing thing that's happening here.
Well, Will Berlinghoff, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today.
It's certainly been my pleasure as well. I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on our past and upcoming guests by going to themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe. Hi, I'm Kevin Moore, host of The Moore Show, and it's my passion to help you live your best life now. You might be looking to find answers on love, connecting with your life's purpose, reuniting with a loved one on the other side, discovering your past lives, or just helping you make sense, finding your direction now. So The Moore Show has collaborated with the most gifted readers around the world to form The Moore Show Psychics. Now, my readers have a large range of skills to choose from to be of service to you, and all my psychics are interviewed to show transparency, with each interview available on the website. So call now, dialing the numbers on the screen to speak to my operators 24/7, or go to tmspsychics.com to choose a reader or book online. The Moore Show Psychics, helping you transform your present moment into the most loving and happiest it can be. Now, I also offer a full money back guarantee, so what have you got to lose? Empower your life now.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London, as we're open every day.